In December of 2008, both the OCG format and the TCG format received the same anniversary pack for Yu-Gi-Oh's 10th anniversary. The only difference was that the English set only had 8 cards and the Japanese set had 9 cards. Now these cards were really unique for a few reasons. They look different because there's no border around their artworks, and the artwork is the main focus of this set because all of the cards were hand-drawn by Kazuki Takahashi. Now you might be asking yourself what one card was missing. Well, Dark Magician Girl was printed in the OCG version but not the TCG one, and that's for a very simple reason. Kazuki Takahashi wanted to make sure that all these artworks that he spent time working on were not changed or altered in any way. Keep in mind, this is an issue because pretty much every single version of Dark Magician Girl for the past 20 years has been censored when it was transferred into the TCG from the OCG's artwork. The big difference here is that most of the OCG versions of this card have a lot more cleavage than any of the TCG versions of this card. Historically speaking, when we look at especially older sets, pretty much every time a card was censored, it was because of religious reasons, sexual reasons, or violent reasons. So obviously in the case of Dark Magician Girl and her cleavage, it's the sexual reason. And when the game first came out, it seemed like way more cards were getting censored. I mean, especially over the past 5 years, Konami has really not censored that many cards, or at least not censored them as drastically as they used to, because back in the day, I mean, yes, Konami would still make smaller altercations on cards, but there were way more cards, and I don't know the last time this happened in the TCG, but in old school Yu-Gi-Oh, many cards just got their artwork completely swapped out for a new artwork. That sort of stuff just doesn't happen these days, and just in general, Konami has really lightened up on a lot of the censorship that they used to do. There are a ton of cards, a ton of examples over the past few years especially, where players were really sure that Konami would censor their artwork and then they didn't. But not only has Konami lightened up their censorship over the past few years with more modern card releases that we thought probably would have gotten censored, but also they're really doubling down on not caring about censorship as much with the Lost Art promotion, which started in 2018. Basically, every single year, Konami picks a batch of cards that had artworks that were censored in the past, and they're giving you the original OCG artworks. This is a complete game changer. You don't pull these cards out of packs or boxes or anything along those lines. They're just cards that you get if you spend more than $30 in one transaction at your local tournament store. They give you one of these for free. What a great idea. I mean, it really promotes shopping at your local OTS stores, which is fantastic, and it gets you these really cool artworks, and this was a fantastic thing. I mean, a lot of players really enjoy the Lost Art promotion, and I'm going to go through a couple of the different cards just to talk about how Konami has gone back on those 3 different censorship types that I talked about: sexual overtones, religious overtones, and violence. But also, I do want to mention here that the most recent Lost Art promotion was really interesting, because so far, up until this point, all of the Lost Art promotion cards have only fell under 2 categories: either cards that were censored for religious reasons or cards that were censored due to violence reasons. So that means that up until this point, we haven't had a single Lost Art promotion that dealt with sexual overtones of older school censored cards. That is until the most recent announcement, which comes at a time, you know, when many players are wishing they could play in Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments. But basically, Konami is doing a really crazy thing here, because some of the Lost Art promotion cards from the most recent one actually didn't make it to OTS stores because everything is closed right now. So Konami said that once OTS stores open, they're going to do more Lost Art promotions. They're going to do them more often. Instead of every month, they're going to do them every 2 weeks, and you're going to have the backlog of the previous Lost Art promotion as well as the new cards, which pretty much all are the sexual overtone cards that many players never thought would be in this promotion. Front and center of the new Lost Art promotion is that artwork of Dark Magician Girl, which we're finally getting after not having it for 12 years. Notice how they even keep the style of the other cards from the anniversary pack where they don't have a border on the artwork. Really cool. I wasn't sure if they were going to do that. Next to it, you have 2 Harpy monsters that a lot of players have asked for to the OCG artworks of, as well as 1 more Harpy spell to the right of Harpy Queen. One that I'm really interested in though is Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood for a few reasons. So this card now looks like a nun, which makes sense because the original version of this in the OCG actually did have nun in the name. I believe it was called like Null Nun and Spooky Dogwood, and then when it was released in the TCG, we didn't have that name or that artwork. What's interesting about this one though is that it's like the least amount of time between the original release and the Lost Art release, which makes me wonder if Konami was really close to to releasing this original version when this card was released in the TCG. We also have two violent imagery ones. We have Tragedy, which is one of those cards that had the artwork completely swapped out for a different image. And then we also have Fright for Leo, which is kind of funny because we don't really think of the Fluffle monsters as violent cards, but yes, pretty much all the Fright for cards and Agimp cards were changed from like actual scissors and knives to more like lightsaber type artworks. That is the newest Lost Art promotion that they just announced not too long ago, and I think it is a great idea. I mean, I really like the idea of the Lost Art promotion just in general, but especially this one because so many players right now are very eager to play in physical Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments once again because online play just isn't the same, but especially right now with many OTSs really suffering because they have to close because they're not essential businesses, this will really encourage people to visit them once they're allowed to and actually buy product in their store, so hopefully they can keep running Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments. But I also want to talk about the original 3 Lost Art promotions that we've gotten over the past few years, just to kind of highlight what Konami has decided is now okay for the Yu-Gi-Oh TCG, when maybe 15 or 20 years ago they wouldn't have made those same decisions. The very first one, released in 2018, was Exodia and Monster Reborn. So you basically had all 5 pieces of Exodia with their OCG artwork as well as Monster Reborn, which is really cool because Monster Reborn is one of the earliest examples of an artwork getting completely swapped out for a new piece of work. What was interesting is that there actually was a little bit of maybe accidental foreshadowing about the Lost Art promotion in a card that was announced in the OCG just a few months prior. Monster Reborn is a card where in the artwork you have a pile of the TCG Monster Reborn artworks, and then you also have on top, sort of rising above, the original OCG artwork. The narrative of this card, you know, the original artwork rising above the sort of copy artwork or the new artwork, doesn't really make sense in the TCG if you have to censor it. So when this card was announced, a lot of players were like, what's actually going to happen when Konami prints this card in the TCG? The answer was pretty simple. Konami doesn't really care about this imagery anymore, so they were willing to not only print Monster Reborn, but also the original artwork of Monster Reborn and the Lost Art promotion. The second Lost Art promotion, which was in 2019, had 5 cards out of the 6 that all dealt with reversing religious imagery censorship changes. So we have 4 cards here that all had horns in the original OCG versions, which I guess back in the day Konami thought was a little bit too similar to like a devil imagery or a demon imagery, so they changed all of those cards. Call of the Haunted was the 5th religious change that they had made in the past, so this artwork corrects that. Basically there is now a cross-shaped tombstone in the artwork. I don't know if that really matters that much, but apparently it did back in the day. The last card in this set, the 6th one, is a violence change, so we have Ring of Destruction. In the TCG it was changed to like a bunch of fireballs surrounding a ring. In this one though, it's clearly grenades, which apparently was too violent. It's whatever, I mean, it's just what Konami decided back in the day, and then nowadays they say, you know what, that change wasn't really necessary. The most recent Lost Art promotion, which we only got half the cards for before everything sort of closed, all the locals closed, this one was one where we actually got to vote on which cards made it into the Lost Art promotion. 3 of the cards are religious changes, so you have Foolish Burial now having a cross tombstone, very similar to Call of the Haunted. You also have Solemn Judgment adding halos to a couple of the characters in the artwork, the 2 girls in the background, and then you have Offering to the Doomed, which is a completely changed artwork. I mean, this is one where they completely swapped out the original artwork, and now we have the original, which is really, really nice. The final 3 cards were all violence related, so we have Super Rejuvenation, which now has real blood coming out of the monster with the big hole in its arm. We also have Gustav Max, which now has a real cannon instead of like a fake laser cannon thing. Then you have Agimp Sabers, which is now a real set of scissors that are sharp. I know, really scary there, instead of like a lightsaber. So why does all this matter? Because if it's just the artwork, you know, it's not affecting gameplay. Well, there is one card called Magi Magician Gal that is released in the OCG and has been released in there for quite a while, and this is a card that we have not gotten in the TCG. This is not an alternate artwork, it is a real card that they have in the OCG. This is the same situation where Kazuki Takahashi did not want the artwork censored when it was released in the TCG, so they just never released it. All of the cards that I talked about in today's video have already been released in the TCG, even without their original artworks. And while it sucks, you know, seeing the original artworks changed or completely altered, I mean, it doesn't really affect gameplay. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. You can still play those cards. However, with this card, it hasn't been released because it wasn't allowed to be censored. And that really really sucks. You know, this is a really cool card that a lot of people have been waiting for quite a while. And up until this point, Konami, with cleavage and other sexual overtone issues, they have been sort of drawing back on the censorship with more modern releases, but not so much on older cards. Because, like I said, all the other Lost Art promotions, the original 3, didn't actually reverse any sexual overtone issues in older artworks. But because Konami was willing to sort of put 4 cards that were all censored due to sexual overtones right front and center of their Lost Art promotion that they just put out, it wouldn't surprise me too much if in the near future we got this card after so many years of players asking for it, because clearly Konami does not care about this type of censorship as much. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has evolved over the past 20 years, and censorship just in general has evolved for many mediums, not just card games, so it makes a lot of sense nowadays for Konami to not care about this stuff as much, because just as a whole, the world doesn't really care about it as much as it did 20 years ago. Anyway though, thank you guys so much for watching today's discussion video. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.